Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's Michelle and I am back with a how to draw or how to color skin tones, more so darker skin tones, more melanated skin. I wanted to do this for Black History Month. I thought it would be a perfect video to do, and then also just update the one I've had for that I did a while ago, a couple of years ago. But yeah, I just did these 3 illustrations, these little portrait drawings, trying to get these down first, and then I've been really trying to focus on doing portraits with more facial expressions and more expressive personalities, making it look more lively. So I just did these 3 illustrations really quick. Well, not really quick, it took a while, but so just before this video, so I can have a base of what we're going to color and get into and have in the tutorial part. So I first start off with the medium skin tone, because from there we can branch off to determine what would be lighter than that and what would be darker than that. So yeah, you could go to an olive tone. I usually do a reddish orange tone, more so that's more my personal favorite, I guess. But yeah, I usually do that, and then I do more saturated colors based on if you're a more saturated girly or guy. You could do a more saturated version of the orange or reddish orange, or you can do a little bit more on the duller side. I do a pretty saturated orange, and based on how dark I'm going, I try to put it in like more like the upper middle part of the color square thing, the color wheel. So yeah, I use the selection tool to kind of like block out the areas of skin that I want to actually color and focus on. And this is one way sometimes I might color a character, is by just like applying a flat base. I usually do a textured brush for my skin, but sometimes if I don't feel like it, I will do a flat base, or I'll just go in and use the selection tool and have that area blocked off, and then I just draw in with my textured brush the base color I'm going in for. But yeah, next I like to go in with shading. I do this on the same layer. I just make this layer, I make an alpha lock layer, and then so I can just shade in easier without having to worry about going outside the lines. And I alpha lock the layer, and I go in with a darker color, more rich in that same color. Sometimes I might push it a little bit more to the redder side sometimes, just to get more of a contrast of color, so it's not so flat looking. And I will go darker, and then also a little bit more saturated on the shadow parts. I usually like to focus on doing behind the collarbone, the neck area, around the face, based on like where the lighting is. This is pretty much a head on kind of like shot. And then anywhere on the sides, like going along the side of her shoulders, to frame her face a little bit more. I use the shading as well, the darker color. I block out the ears a little bit just to show that's like kind of hidden behind her hair. And then any areas that her hair is overlaying over her face. The top parts of her eye, where the eyelid is, I try to shade that area underneath the nose, around the nose a little bit, just to show like it comes up a little bit from off the bridge of the nose, is it the nostrils part? So yeah, that part. The creases of the mouth I try to do underneath the bottom lip, and yeah, I think that's mostly the areas I try to get. And then I said under the neck. But anywhere that you see like an overlay or something overlaying the skin, I like to try to put a shadow underneath it. Where the hair drops on over the skin, I try to put a shadow there. I use another texture brush for this. I use the gouache brush in I think it's the painting section of Procreate. That's my favorite one to go in with shades and just adding more texture and things like that, not to make it look so flat and too smooth. I think that's like a lot of like an area where a lot of beginner artists kind of struggle, is like a lot of the new a lot of their art looks too smooth and too smoothed out and too much smudge brush and airbrush looking. And I like the more textured kind of art. I like when people do it, so I do it on my art as well. So yeah. I also like to go in a little harsher, and then I can always reduce from there. I go back in with a smudge brush, but with texture. I use the same texture brush I colored in with the gouache brush to also smudge out a little bit and make the shadows a little bit more seamless and not so harsh in certain areas. Some areas I want it to be harsher, like where like the hair might cut, but on her neck and things like that, it doesn't need to be so harsh. So I try to pick and choose where I need the harder shadows and where I want the more softer, more natural shadows to occur. Now for this next part, I like to add a little bit of blush, just to make my characters or my drawings look a little bit more flesh, the people I draw. I like a little bit of red. Even on dark skin, there's still a little redness underneath your skin, so it helps bring a little bit more liveliness to the characters. Adding this like little bit of blush as well to their skin is one of my favorite parts other than the highlight. But yeah, I go in and I go more red, and I try to go sideways on the color wheel, color map, the color square thing, and definitely more red. Sometimes depending on the skin tone, I might go pink instead of red, but for her I did go red. And then yeah, and I just make it more saturated just to bring out more of that red tint, that red hue in the back. And then I go over with the gouache brush in areas that should be a little bit more flesh. I feel like the peaks of certain areas, like the nose, the peaks of her cheekbones, a little bit of the forehead area. I do like a circular motion, and the chin, and then the ears I like to do too as well, just a little bit. The collarbone area, the chest area, and then her shoulders, the peak part of her shoulders are my favorite areas to really kind of color with that like blush kind of hue. Next, on a different layer, this should be above the base and the shade layer and the blush layer. I put on top, is a highlight layer. And highlight, I usually go more white, a little bit more yellower on this, based on the skin tone. I might go more yellow, but is like more of like a light orange, more on the white pastier side. Sometimes I try not to go too pasty or too dull, because it could make your character look pasty or your illustration. So yeah, just watch out for that. I try to have like a little bit of a yellow hue or orangey hue in the back to still make the character look more lively, and for it to also look a little bit more natural as a highlight. And then I just go over like the peaks of areas on her face, like the top part of her, right underneath her eye, with the highlight. The sides of her nose where it peeks out a little bit, on the base of the nose, not the base of the nose, on the base of the face, but right on the side of the nose. The eyelid, I like to do like a little bit of like a line upwards just to show like the roundness of the eyelid. I do like a highlight line going up to the eyebrow, and then I do an eyebrow highlight underneath the eyebrow itself. A forehead, mid forehead, kind of off to the side, based on like the whatever your lighting situation is that you're making up in your head for the character. I like to do the top of the lips, and then the top of the corners of the mouth, and then the chin are my favorite places on the nose. Oh, and the nose tip as well, and then the bridge of the nose. I did a little bit on the ears here just to bring those out a little bit, not to have them so pushed to the back. I know we shaded it into the back, but they deserve a little attention too. And then I do the middle of the neck and the collarbone, the peaks of the collarbone, and then the peaks of the shoulder as well, with a little bit of highlight. But and then I think I add a little bit to the collar, but yeah, underneath the little dip of between the collarbones itself. But yeah, just like everything else, I kind of go in harsh with the highlight, and then I smudge it out based on what I want to be more pronounced and what I want to be more subtle. So the cheeks I can make a little bit more subtle. The forehead I try to make a little bit more subtle. I do like skinny down like the little highlight band over the eyelid to the eyebrow. I do that a lot, just to make it not be so harsh, but to still have that highlight there. And the one on the nose bridge I bring down a little. Just depends on like what your style is. If you like that harsher highlight, then yeah, go with that. I usually do, if I want a more harsher highlight, I do this base highlight and then I go on top after with a more like smaller, more precise highlight on certain areas, especially if the lighting is going to be hard. If I picture the lighting being hard in that illustration. And these are all the colors I used on the medium skin tone. We had our base color, our shade, our blush, and our highlight color. So 4 colors in total to render out this character so far. And this is the base, I would say, of like coloring a character, in my opinion. But yeah. So like before, I use the medium base color as my marker of how light I should go for starting the light skin, the lighter toned skin color. I usually go a little bit, I think I went a little bit more yellowish for her skin tone, and then I go up to lighten it as well, and then a little bit over to the left. On the color wheel system on Procreate, just to get that more desired, more natural light skin kind of look. And it's not as saturated, but it's still personally is more saturated. Yeah, I like things more saturated, like I said, so it's saturated for me. And yeah, I go in with that. I did my selection tool and then colored her in. For the shading part, I go in with a deeper kind of red-ish tone, and also it's like a mix of her color already. And like I said, just bring it down and a little bit more to the right with the cursor tool for the color picker, and to select that deeper color of a red tone, just to do the the shading part of her, and shading anything that's hidden behind anything, that's overlapping anything. I try to shade those areas. Again, basically, same thing here with the light skin. I do a reddish tone kind of blush for her on a different layer above the skin tone layer, just to add that, like I said, liveliness, more not youthfulness, but just like make her look like she's alive, and not so flat and dead. And just brings more color to the face, and a little bit more of a different dimension to it. So yeah, I go in with like a little bit of a redder tone on her, more saturated red tone, and I move my cursor on the wheel just to the right. I don't move it up or down, really. I try to move it just straight to the right to just give like a saturated red hue, and I move the hue bar down more to the red side. Yeah. Next is highlights, and I go in for her skin tone, since it's so already light already. I go in with a almost touching the top of the color picker, and more onto the wider side of shades for her highlight. And I don't think I move the color wheel at all in hers, or the hue picker, but yeah, if anything, I move it more to the yellow side, and that would be her highlight. But it is way lighter than you would go for a darker skin tone. And we just hit the high areas of her face with the highlight: the nose, the cheeks, the forehead, a lip, Cupid's bow area, the chin. The main things like we hit in the medium, coloring in the medium the skin tone. Same thing here. The eyebrows, the eyelids, things like that. And from there, I just smudged it out so it looks a little bit more natural, and Yeah, that was really it for the light skin. It kind of repeats itself. I would say where it gets a little more trickier is when we get over to the darker skin toned. And the darker you go, it's going to be a little bit different. But this is more just like a basic understanding of like how you would color that kind of skin tone. So on the right we have the darkest skin tone on that I'm going to be showcasing today, and I use for her the medium skin tone again, but I go darker, and hers is more of a deeper red. I don't like to go too orange on darker skin tones because it kind of looks weird, so I'd like to go more red and to add that deep, more rich melanated color to her skin. And so yeah, that's what I did, and colored that in. So next we go in for shading her with an even deeper reddish tone color, more to the right, more downwards from the medium or the base tone that she had that we put down, and just going over her more lower points on her face, underneath the lip, underneath the mouth, the ears, the side of the face, like we talked about earlier, the bottom of the nose bridge where the nostrils kind of meet, and yeah, and then her neckline. I smooth all of that out, and then we get into the blush. Now, blush for like a darker skin tone is a little bit trickier. I go over to the red even more on the hue slider, and then I move all the way, I think, to the right with the actual like picker for the color, just so you can actually get a deep red for her blush, and it will still show up. And yeah, for the highlights now, like I said, are a little bit different on darker skin tones because you can't go white and you can't go too pasty. I like to keep it more of a yellowish orange based on whatever her base color is more. So if she's like more of a base red, I like to do more of a base orange-ish kind of highlight. If she's more of an olivey skin tone, I'll probably do more of a yellowy, is that a word? A yellowish highlight for her, and just going over the high points of her face. When I first colored her, I wasn't really much of a fan. I think it was because I did too light of a highlight for her, so it was too light as well, even with the orange highlight. It doesn't pick up as badly on here as I'm seeing, but in person when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. It was still too harsh for me, so I did go back and dim it down a little bit, as you can see later on in the video. But yeah, I got her 4 main colors picked out for her skin tone: the base, the shade, the blush, and the highlight. Now that's basically it for like coloring skin tones and things like that. How I like to finish up my illustrations, I show you guys after all of this, but it continues on here, showing you like how I match like the lip colors and stuff like that to the skin tones as well. That's also could be a little tricky, but yeah, maybe I'll do a more in-depth video on that. I know I've found a couple tutorials like here and there on Pinterest and on TikTok, but I would love to go in like more in-depth tutorial on like how I color lips and things like that. Faces are like my big thing this year, trying to like focus on again and just like making my characters look more lively. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and enjoy the rest of it. Thank you guys for watching, and happy Black History Month, of course. More videos coming soon. Sorry for the delay in videos. I moved to Georgia this month, and it kind of threw off my whole balance with trying to get a new desk and things like that, a desk chair. My PC was down, so I couldn't edit anything. So after the move, it got like a little shifted. So but now it's back up and running, obviously, since this video is up to you guys. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. More videos to come in March, and yeah, see you guys soon. Bye.